welcome to another edition of Island Stack Sports Talk. Joining me this time around is none other than Lance Fraser, and we would all remember Lance from his time of sailing in Bermuda. It's been a few years, but you will be flying the Canadian flag during the Gold Cup, which gets underway in just a matter of 2 weeks' time. But looking back at your experiences during your Gold Cup performances, and flying the Bermuda flag back then, how do you think the experiences that you've had will help you this time around when sailing gets underway?
Yeah, well, thanks for having me, Earl. It's going to be awesome to be back in Hamilton Harbor and sailing. Be a bit different sailing for Canada instead of Bermuda, but will be fun nonetheless. I think the experiences doing 5 prior Gold Cups are going to be huge in being able to compete and sail well down in Bermuda. Hamilton Harbor is an extremely interesting and fun place to sail, and any experience you have sailing there is just can only be helpful as you go into the regatta. And the IODs as well are so different than anything that we sail anywhere else in the world. I'm looking forward to get back into the IODs and back into Hamilton Harbor. And those 5 years that I did before will be hugely helpful in being able to compete and sail well in Bermuda in a couple of weeks.
Yeah. When you look at it, I mean, you done match racing in Bermuda, and part of that was those IODs. But the fact that you haven't been in one in a number of years, how long do you think it would take you, like everyone else, to adjust back into that boat?
Yeah, we'll see. It'll be interesting. I remember when we did the events back, 5 or so years ago, and we were sailing it every year. Everybody would always say, "Oh, well, the locals and the IODs, and they know so much." And it's partly true, but we also never really sailed the IODs except when the Gold Cup was happening, and I was away at school a lot of the time. So we'd only sail the IODs a few days a year, other than immediately leading up to the Gold Cup. And we normally were able to get back in the boats and figure it out pretty quickly. We'll see this time. It's been a few years. I like that style of boat. I like that style of match racing. So I'm hoping it'll come back fairly quickly. But it'll certainly be an interesting practice day. And I'm sure the first race, there'll be some surprise moments where it all starts coming back and you start remembering how different it actually is.
When you were coming up, you had some battles with other youngsters that were sailing out of Bermuda as well. But what do you remember about your times growing up and learning the craft of actually sailing?
Sorry, pardon me. Can you repeat that?
Yeah. When you were younger, growing up in the sport, what do you remember about your challenges while honing your craft in trying to develop your sport?
Yeah, I look back at at those days growing up sailing in Bermuda very, very fondly. We were so lucky, and I don't know if we knew it at the time, but we used to sail 5-6 times a week, 12 months a year growing up, sailing opties out of the yacht club or the dinghy club in Bermuda. And it was just an amazing place to learn how to sail. We had amazing coaches, amazing people, awesome equipment, and just an amazing venue to really get better at sailing. And a lot of those were kind of lifelong friendships that I still have. And there really is no better place to learn how to sail when you're young than Bermuda. So, there's always challenges. You got to work hard. There's, sailing's a difficult sport. But sometimes I wish I could go back and just be sailing 5-6 times a week like we used to growing up in Bermuda.
Yeah, when you're young and you're free to do a lot of stuff, but as you get older, other life challenges come into play. But let's talk a little bit about when you left Bermuda and what you've been doing up to this point, because you're highly ranked in match racing.
Yeah, so I left. I went to school in Canada when I was 18, and then moved to Toronto after university, which would have been 5 years ago now, and was able to join the Royal Canadian Yacht Club RCYC in Toronto, which has got an awesome racing history and program. So I was able to keep sailing. Say I took a couple of years off and just getting out of school to start my career, and then we've been able to get back match racing the last couple of years and sail a bunch of grade 3s in Toronto and New York, Chicago, Detroit, and so we've been keeping at it. And the last couple of years were great years for us sailing in match racing with a bunch of wins, which helped us get the ranking up. And then, also doing some sailing with some other people as a tactician, both in match racing and fleet racing. I was able to sail for RCYC in the New York Yacht Club Invitational in fleet racing, which was an amazing experience. And also, did won a regatta last year with Chris Poole, who's also sailing the Gold Cup as tactician. So those types of things really help with seeing things from a different perspective and improving yourself. And luckily the ranking was good enough this year to get to the Gold Cup, and the Royal Bermuda Yacht Club has been hugely supportive of me and my sailing for over a decade now, and continue to be, even when I'm flying the flag of a different country, which is just amazing, and I'm very thankful to them for giving us an invite and getting us back to the Gold Cup in Bermuda.
When you look back at the times where you were representing Bermuda in the Gold Cup, and you were up against the likes of Ben Ainsley and big named sailors, do you look back and say at times, I was in a bit of an awe because these guys are world-renowned sailors, and here I am actually match racing them?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you can't look at them like that in the moment. Otherwise, you probably shouldn't be there. And my first match race in the Gold Cup was against Ben Ainsley, and we got into a collision in the first 30 seconds of the pre-start. And ended up losing the race, but those were amazing experiences. You've got to look at everybody. Every race is a race that you can win and go in confidently, and do all the preparation to make sure that you can compete and can have a chance. Obviously, the Gold Cup has been played host to the best sailors in the world for decades, and being a part of that and being able to sail against them is amazing. But we're not there to participate. You gotta go into it thinking you can win, and being confident and preparing to compete against those guys. And, I remember a lot of those races being very close and winning, a number of them. And those, very, very tough people to sail. I'll look back at it in 20 years very fondly that I had the chance to sail against those guys. But right now you just got to focus on preparing as much as you can and being able to take on, no matter who's coming in from the other end of the line.
Right. You look at someone like Kelsey Doram, who this will be his second year in the Gold Cup. What do you think he's going through, having had that first year under his belt, and now obviously looking for a second time? He picked up a win in his first year. What do you think he will be going through looking at his second year, like you did when you went into your second year?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's an interesting thing to go through from Bermuda, because I think Kelsey won the Nationals, which we had done way back in the day, and the first year is kind of a whirlwind when you probably realize. Remember, I realized how far off we probably were from truly competing. I wasn't there last year, so I have no idea how Kelsey did. But Kelsey's been sailing in the States and in Bermuda. He came up to Toronto last summer and sailed against us for a bit. So he's been focused on improving and match racing outside of Bermuda, which is really important if you're going to be able to compete at the Gold Cup level. So I'm sure he's a lot more comfortable than he was in year one, even if he didn't know it. I remember I was a lot more comfortable in year two, and it was my second year. You kind of know how it all works. You're not, and you can kind of attack the regatta with more confidence and experience as you continue to do every year. And every regatta you add, it's just more experience and more learning that you can rely on and use that experience to help win races.
Yeah. Which boat do you like to match race in? Because when you go different places, obviously there's different fleets. So which one would you feel more? Which one do you feel more comfortable in when it comes to match racing?
Well, I hope it's still the IOD. We always loved the IODs growing up. At least in the Gold Cup, it's a really interesting style of match racing, and I look back on those days very fondly. I hope that I still look back on, or I still will say that after this regatta, now that it's been a few years. But there's really no equivalent to the IOD outside of the IOD that I've sailed around North America or around the world. So second to that, the Swedish Match 40s in New York, and they have them a number of places, are also bigger, heavier boats that really play to that more strategic side of match racing that I think is awesome to race and awesome to watch, which is why Bermuda is such a great event.
The Hamilton Harbor also offers us a challenge offers a challenge to not only the sailor and his competitor, but you could start on the side and get a tremendous lead, and then a shift of wind comes and you could end up way behind. How important is it for everyone on the boat to be in tune with those shifts when that wind does shift in the harbor, which could shift in a matter of a minute?
Yeah, it's a tough place to sail, and I can list off a number of races where you think you have it and you don't, and vice versa. I mean, that's sailing. That's not just Hamilton Harbor. There's a number of venues around the world that, especially when it's lighter air, it's extremely shifty and very hard to compete. Or at least you've got to be very, very in tune with what's going on. And you know, the real tough part about Hamilton Harbor is when you get up in under Newstead or under the Princess Hotel and they start putting the marks real close to land, is sometimes you can't even see it. So it's one thing to be able to see a shift coming and react to it and you know, sail as best you can with your strategy to the shifts, but it's a whole nother world when there's parts of the course where you can't even see the shift coming. So you just got to take that into account. You got to know, you know, what the risk is, that there's going to be a huge shift when you're giving your competitor, you know, leverage at all. And just, you know, you're probably gonna lose one like that in the course of a regatta like the Gold Cup, and you hopefully will win one back in the same way, and it will all even out. But no, it's a really fun place to sail. You got to have a good team who's sailed there before and can all react and feed information back to the skipper and the tactician to make sure that everybody's on the same page and you can see everything that's coming. And if something comes that you can't see, then just got to keep your head up and focus on the next race.
Obviously, your first order of business is to try and qualify for the quarterfinals. How many wins do you think, looking at the field, how many wins do you think it's going to take for you to get to that quarterfinal mark?
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. I don't think I've seen a final draft of the format. But I assume they're doing 2 groups of 8 and there'll be some level of repechage. You know, if it's top 2 going to the quarters, I think it'll be at least at an absolute minimum 5, probably 6 to go straight through. Mm-hmm. And that's got to be the goal. I mean, you really, in any match racing regatta, you know, your first order of business is just, you know, winning the round robin, which isn't always possible, but you just got to take it race by race and get some early wins, and it'll really help set you up for the rest of the regatta. Because by the time, if there's a repechage round and you got all of the best sailors in the world who've been sailing the boats for 2 or 3 days, all, you know, fighting tooth and nail to get the last 2 spots to the quarters or whatever it ends up being, that's really, really good and really, really tough sailing. So if you can avoid that and get straight to the quarters, that's obviously the goal.
Growing up, obviously, the Gold Cup is one that stands out in a lot of people's mind in Bermuda, celebrating 70 years of racing this year. When you see the presentation of that trophy, for you, when you were sailing under the Bermuda flag, and now you're going to sail it under the Canadian flag, what does that trophy mean when you've actually sailed for it? Because it's a different appreciation than just being a spectator, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, you know, it's a whole different appreciation if you're actually have, you know, competed for and in Bermuda as well. I mean, there's a number of us in this Gold Cup and in the last few Gold Cups dating back to 2013, 2014 that were able to sail the Renaissance Reed Junior Gold Cup as kids and watch, you know, Russell Coots, Jimmy Spithill, Dennis Conner, those types of names sail for the Gold Cup and win the Gold Cup. And, you know, you look back on that as an Opti sailor, and we used to do that race in the middle of finals day where you do the last race of the Junior Gold Cup in the harbor. And then you'd be on the dock and you'd see these guys. They would talk to you. They sign your poster. You watch the Gold Cup presentation and it becomes a dream. So to then, you know, be able to compete in the event, and obviously everybody wants to win that trophy, but it's huge for the kids who have sailed in that event, including myself. It's huge for, I hope it's still huge for the youth sailors in Bermuda. And I hope that in 10 years, we're watching some of them who are sailing Junior Gold Cup this year competing in this event. And I was going to say, I hope someone who's done that event wins it, but I think that's already happened with Taylor Canfield. So, it's an amazing trophy. It's a regatta that does a lot for the sport, not just in Bermuda, but globally. And you see that in some of the articles that come out with, guys from the UK, Taylor, people from New Zealand just speaking so highly about the event and the trophy and the Junior Gold Cup and everything else. It really is an amazing event, and it's world renowned and probably, one of the, if not the best event on the circuit in the world.
Yeah. The unfortunate thing this year, the Renaissance Re Junior Gold Cup has been postponed due to COVID. But how have you been coping with this worldwide global pandemic?
Yeah, it's been an interesting year. I've been very lucky that I have a stable job in financial services and have been able to work from home the entire time. I was able to spend a couple months down south at the start of the pandemic, which was also nice. But look, you've got to be first and foremost. You just have to be safe, and you've got to do your part to contribute to the rules and regulations and making sure that everybody around you, your family, your friends, is staying safe and avoiding the virus itself. But after that, things like the Gold Cup are going to make a huge difference for people, because it's just amazing that Bermuda's been able to open the borders safely. It's been amazing that we're going to be able to hopefully do this, or we will be able to do the Bermuda Gold Cup safely, and hosting a world championship at the same time in these times is a real testament to the dedication and experience and skill that the Yacht Club and the Bermuda Gold Cup organizers have in pulling this off. And so, unfortunately for most of us, I imagine we haven't been doing as much sailing at this level or at close to this level as we would have liked to prepare for this type of event. But you're doing a lot of local sailing, not traveling very much, and just, staying safe and healthy. And it's going to be amazing to have everybody come together in Bermuda safely and get this World Championship and Bermuda Gold Cup held in what's a beautiful venue for an amazing regatta.
Yeah, the one thing is that Bermuda will be on show basically for 3 international events at the same time, because we'll be hosting the PGA Bermuda Open Championships, the golf, and as well as Rugby World Tens. So it'll be a ton of people on island trying to make a name for themselves in their respective sports. And, the Gold Cup plays a major part in that, because, like I said, it's celebrating 70 years this year. And hopefully, I'm going to wish you well, that you get through to that final and possibly land your hands on it. Because what I remember of you sailing, you have all the tools, and getting back on a familiar course will only benefit you, hopefully, to make it a dream come true.
Yeah, I hope so. That would certainly be a dream. But whoever does, it's going to be an amazing regatta, and I can't wait to get back to Bermuda and get sailing again in Hamilton Harbor.
All right. I want to thank you very much for your time, Lance. I will see you when you arrive at Bermuda. We'll catch up at the Yacht Club. And again, good luck on the waters of the Hamilton Harbor for the 70th Gold Cup.
Thanks, Earl.
All righty.